What's up, everybody? Welcome to Relationship Talk with Trev. I have a guest with me today. This is my fiance, Olga. Thought we'd get a female perspective on what we're going to be talking about. And what we're going to be talking about is roles. The roles are the roles that we play within a relationship, and whether those are even valid anymore. But I want to take it back a little bit. So Olga grew up in a house with her mother and father, and she's the youngest of four siblings, right? So it's daughter, it's your sister, brother, sister, you, right? Age wise, okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's start off with talk a little bit about what the dynamic was as far as what the expectations were for the daughters in your house compared to your brother, like what the difference was as far as being raised.
So, my mother did most of the housework, the cooking, the cleaning, laundry.
But I mean, as far as your brothers and sisters, though.
Well, we had to pick up the slack if she wasn't around.
Okay.
But my brother was never expected to do any of it.
Okay.
I don't even think he ever took out the trash.
So, so the women, even from a young age, were expected to do the housework kind of stuff, and your brother was excused from that.
Yeah, we didn't do a lot of heavy housework. I've heard of other people that definitely had a concrete amount of housework that they were expected to do. I don't think in my family it was so much like that. My mother definitely was the one that did most of it.
All right. So now you guys are older, and you have your two sisters. One is still married. One was married. Your brother's never been married. You've never been married. But so once your sisters got older and were married, do you find that they took on the same kind of role that kind of your mother had while you guys were growing up?
So, yes, definitely the women in the family are the ones that are doing the majority of the housework. With my younger of my two older sisters, her husband would cook and do dishes. I don't think he did much else as far as cleaning the house or doing laundry or anything like that. With my oldest sister, I think her husband would cook occasionally. Originally they lived with my grandmother, so my grandmother would do some of the laundry and doing the dishes while they were at work. But since she's gone now, I'm pretty sure it's just my sister.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Do you think that that's cultural? So Olga is from a Portuguese heritage. Do you think that that's a cultural thing? Like that's just, or is that like a time frame thing? Like that's how it was done, kind of in the older days. Like as far as your parents. But is it different now for younger Portuguese couples?
I can't tell you that because I can't tell you that as far as people that live there and have moved away from those traditional roles, because I don't know too much about that. And people that have immigrated and were raised with those traditional roles, they may carry them over only because that's how they were raised and not necessarily that's how it still is back in Portugal.
Okay, so it's more of a
Generational.
generational kind of thing. And your mother and father, from what I have been told, were kind of like the what you would consider kind of the old fashioned. Dad went out and worked pretty much, brought home the money, paid the bills, blah blah blah. Mom stood home, took care of you guys, took care of the house.
To a certain point.
And that's okay to a certain point. And there was a point where that might have changed.
Yes.
What was that all about?
My father getting hurt at work.
Oh yeah, all right. So you told me about that. And then so at that point, your mother kind of took on the role of
Both.
provider. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Was she just did she do provider and your father took care of stuff in the house, or
No,
now she did both and
she
he?
did both.
Okay.
And I feel like that's what happens with us, even though we become more.
We have a dog sitting here with us, and she's making some foul noises. So if you hear something, it wasn't either one of us.
Where was I? What is? Was I saying?
I know she threw us all off. No, as far as your mother taking on both roles.
Yeah. So I think as women become more independent, we unfortunately still, I feel like, and I see it with other people. We're still picking up most of the slack at home. So even though we might work outside the home as much as our partner, when we come home, I feel like we're still doing more housework. So I feel like we've just added to the plate instead of.
Nowadays, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but even your mother back then, she still kind of wore both hats.
Yes.
And okay.
Yeah. My father didn't become like the one that would keep up with the house.
Right.
I don't think he did any more than he had done when he was working.
And I'm not sure how necessarily cultural that is because, I mean, that's something that I've heard a lot, even with different cultures than Portuguese, and it was a generational thing. It seemed like, like I think I mentioned in one of my previous videos, like the whole Leave It to Beaver kind of thing. Brady Bunch, all the things that we grew up watching, where you had the wife kind of at home taking care of things, and the man was the breadwinner. And that's the quote unquote traditional paradigm, right? Now I grew up in a single family home, so my mother from jump took on both roles. She worked 2 or 3 jobs, whatever she had to do, and then she still could, came home and took care of us and took care of the house and all. My father was around, and the role that he took on was sometimes as enforcer. If I was really kind of acting up, and my mother usually was able to handle it, but sometimes when she was getting real frustrated, she would actually call my father. And even though my father didn't live with us and wasn't, that level of dad, I still had this reverence, I guess, for him. And he still, just because I think he was a man, had this authority that that my mother didn't have, and you know, my mother didn't spare the strap. I mean, if I needed a belt, I got it. My father never. All he had to do was look at me, and I couldn't even, I couldn't do anything. I would look away. I would, but he had that power just because he was a man. And a lot of these things, I think, when we grow up, even though we can recognize that they're old fashioned and they're not necessarily, they're a bit antiquated. We kind of still fall into those roles a little bit. There are a lot of different relationship kinds of relationships now. Now, obviously, Olga and I, heterosexual relationship, heterosexual couple. This is kind of all that we can really speak on with any kind of authority. But there are obviously same-sex relationships, and we've talked a little bit about, because we have people in our lives who are in same-sex relationships, and we've talked amongst ourselves about, what is that dynamic? What are those roles? And there was someone in the work field, in Olga's work field, that was in a same-sex relationship, and there were distinct roles.
There is, yeah.
There's distinct roles in that. And would you call them? Would you, for lack of better term, would you call them like male female kind of roles, or how would you define it?
I would say that one of them definitely takes on more of the childbearing, taking care of the house role versus just, working and only taking care of themselves when they get home.
Okay. So,
But there are also children involved, so I think that changes things a little bit because of that.
all right. So the way you put that, it defined, what the role was, or
Traditionally for a woman.
well, that's what I was going to say, is that you talked about what the actual what the actual work that was done was, but didn't necessarily assign it to a feminine or a masculine. So I don't know, any of you who are in a same-sex relationship. I mean, feel free to leave some sort of comment in the comment section, because we also have other people in our lives in same-sex relationships where we can't recognize a specific role in either one of them. Now, we're not in their relationships. We don't live in their house. We spend whatever minimal time that we get to spend with them. But I've never recognized a distinct role that either one of them played. They both have careers. They both work. There's not one that's home taking care of the house while the other one's doing this. Like we look at the quote unquote traditional masculine and feminine, or male and female roles. So those roles, I would like to say, as we've progressed in society, with women's rights and different things, I would like to say that those roles have changed. But in our relationship, right? What would you say? How would you like define our relationship as far as roles go?
I'm still the one that pays more attention to the house stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do it when it finally gets to you, and your threshold for when it finally gets to you is a lot bigger threshold than mine.
Yep.
And then you have this thing where you want to teach me these more masculine roles because you're afraid I'm going to be helpless.
Yep.
So and then the garbage thing. I feel like I always take out my own garbage, and it's because I don't have patience to tell somebody to do it, or wait for somebody else to do it.
But do you? All right. So there's a lot to unpack there. So do you feel like that should be more of a masculine task, but because you don't have the patience to try to get your son or me or whatever to do it, you just do it yourself?
Yes. Only because it's still like a house chore. But it's one that I feel like sometimes the garbage is heavy or whatever. I still think, in my mind, it's better suited for the male role.
All right. So, to expound on that a little bit, in our relationship, I don't know if I want to call it role specific, but what works for us is there are certain things that I do and there are certain things that she does. And they might not necessarily be your quintessential male role, female role. Yesterday, I cooked dinner. And throughout our relationship, what we've kind of come into that just works for us, because like she said, she's a lot more attentive when it comes to like cleaning and those kind of things. And maybe that comes from what we were just talking about as far as in your household.
Yes.
Growing up, that's what was expected of the women. And so
Of the house.
In the house, right?
Expected of the house.
But
So
of the women in the house,
women-
not your brother, not your
Right,
father,
right.
right? So
The expectation was there from my father, even though he wasn't the one doing it.
Okay. All right. So as you get older, that stuff is kind of ingrained in you. So yeah, what we've come into in our relationship is that I've always been the one that would cook the meal, and she would clean up afterwards. She would wash the dishes, put everything in the dishwasher. At times when I've tried to wash this or that, it wasn't up to standards. So and I'm not saying that that was on purpose. I'm just saying, but that's the way it kind of goes. And do we think normally of cooking the meal as kind of the female traditional role? In the old time kind of stuff. I mean, maybe, right? But that's not really the way it goes. And another thing that you said is that I try to teach you what you consider to be kind of more masculine things to do because I don't want her to be helpless. Um, uh, Being a little vulnerable and kind of putting stuff out there a little bit. Like I said, I do come from a single family or a single parent home. Uh, and my mother raising me took on definitely, without a doubt, both roles. As she's gotten older, she has relied on me and my sons to pick up more of what she considers the masculine stuff, and has almost gotten to the point where um, it's like she's not able to do these things anymore. And I know she always did them when I was growing up. All of a sudden, she can't do them anymore. Um, and I'm not sure what that is.
Maybe she's tired from doing it all those
It
years
could,
by
and it
herself.
very well could be that. It very well could be that. But it's very difficult for me to look at my mother, who I thought was Wonder Woman, who did so much, um, raising me and my sister, and still working and taking care of everything, to look at her now as someone who maybe feels a little helpless, or like she's not able to do certain things, things that Olga calls, or maybe even she calls, the masculine things, the mowing the lawn, the taking out the trash, I mean, there's a long list of them. And so I'm a little older than Olga. That was a tongue twister. And I let me go back a little more. I also have family members who, husband and wife lost husband, uh, and they did everything together, and wife was lost, totally lost, felt absolutely helpless, uh, even though she knew how to do things, didn't feel like she could do them, because her husband was gone. And so when I try to uh, get Olga to do certain things, um, it's because I feel like, because I'm older, chances are I'll be gone first. And what's going to happen when I'm gone? I don't ever want her to feel uh, helpless, or like she, you know, doesn't know how to, she's got a ride-on mower. She's got a lot of property here. There's a lot of things that need to get done. And what's going to happen if I'm not there to do them? You know, so that male role, or those male things, um, I try to make them not a male or female thing. I just try to make them, listen, these are the things that need to be done in life, and we should both know how to do them. That's my outlook on it. But there have been many times that I've heard, you're my man, so you should do this, or you're my man, or you should do that. And I got to say, that also comes from a woman who feels empowered, who has a career, who bought her own home, who uh,
Likes to be independent.
likes to be independent, and has that. streak that a woman is capable of doing anything a man can do. And so, even though that's what society has brought to you and what you've recognized in the way ideally you like to think about things, there's still that ingrained programming from the old school way of, well, that's a man thing to do, and this is a girl thing to do. I mean, am I right about that, or?
I think that because you're my partner, a benefit of having a partner that is physically stronger than me is to do some of those things. And if I didn't have a partner that was physically stronger than me, then maybe I could pay somebody to do it. But I just think it should be a
I guess
benefit.
that's one way to.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's fine.
And as far as your family member, it's not a physical she can't do it. It's an emotional.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Even my mother, very capable of doing these things, but if there are men around, well, let the men do it. That's a man thing to do, right?
It might also be an emotional thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of that too, right? And so, I mean, the reason that I even wanted to talk about this today was because we hear about it all the time, about how, men and women are equal. Anything a man can do, a woman can do better. You hear all these things all the time. And it's controversial for me to say. I don't care if you. This is what I recognize or what I notice. And if you have a comment about it, leave it in the comment section. That's what I want. But even though I hear that constantly, I still constantly find that women still want to define those roles. When we walk into a store, and I pointed this out to Olga a couple weeks ago, and she didn't even realize she did it. If we walk into a restaurant, a store, anywhere, she walks up to the door and stops. She'll stop. Like she forgot how to open a door, right? And waits for me to open the door. And I have no problem opening the door. I mean, I was raised to be chivalrous, right? So that's fine. But this is the strong, independent, woman, right?
I'm a strong, independent woman, and if I find a partner that I want to share my life with, then they
You better open the damn
they should
door.
come with some perks.
Okay,
Because, I mean,
fair enough.
At the end of the day, if we're still going to have to do everything ourselves as if we didn't have a partner, then why have that partner?
Okay.
That's how I feel.
Hopefully, I bring some other things to the table too. But no, I mean that's legit. That's absolutely legit.
And you wouldn't like my cooking. That's why I stopped
No,
cooking.
she makes 3 things. That's
No. Well, I make 3 things, but
yeah, that's about
the
it.
3 things the only 3 things you might eat.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean that's kind of where that is. When we talk about it so differently that these roles kind of don't even exist anymore. And because of all the different dynamics and all the different kinds of relationships out there, these roles you would think have gone by the wayside. But, and again, 50s, 40s, maybe our kids who are in their 20s, maybe when they come up, maybe some of these things will have been shed even more as far as these mental programmings that no matter how much we try to get away from them are just there as far as what a kind of a man's role is or what a woman's role is. Maybe that stuff will go away as time goes on. But even though we try to get away from it, we still fall into it. And so I wonder if our kids won't pick that up from us the same way we picked it up from our parents. And maybe it's perpetual. I really don't know.
You have to pay attention to pick it up.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother. That's the next. That's the next video. Yeah. I mean, let me know what you guys think. Leave some comments in the comment section. Are roles dead? Should there be a masculine, a feminine role anymore in a relationship? Do you think that they're gone? Should they be gone? Do they still exist? What are the roles that you have? If you're in, particularly, I would love to hear from some people who are in maybe same-sex relationships. What's that dynamic? Is there, if there are certain chores, I guess, that one partner does and certain chores that the other partner does, do you even look at that as the feminine role or the masculine role, or is that something that just straight people think of? I don't know, and I would love to know. So yeah, if you could leave some comments in the comment section, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. This is Olga, this is Trev. See you guys next time.